democracy? Democracy isn't what these people need. Hell, it's not even what they want. America's been running around the globe trying to install democracies in nation after nation for a century, and it hasn't worked one time. Now, why do you think that is? Because these countries don't have the most basic building blocks necessary to support a democracy. Little things like we ought to be tolerant of those who disagree with us, or we ought to be tolerant of those who worship a different god than us, or that a journalist ought to be able to disagree with a fucking president. And you think you can walk into this country based on fundamentalist religious principles, drop a couple of bombs, topple a dictator, and start a democracy? Give me a break. People don't want freedom. They want rules, boundaries, protections from invaders and from themselves. People need a leader who can both provide the constraints and the support to keep chaos at bay. And you give them that, and they'll follow.
All that I am talking about here comes under the heading of diversion. This is one of the most effective of the mind manipulation weapons used against the human psyche. It takes many forms. If you're being held captive, one way to escape is to start a diversion. It may be an argument or a fight amongst fellow prisoners. Once the trouble starts, everyone's attention, including that of the guards, focuses on the incident. This gives you the opportunity to slip away unseen. The bullfighter's technique is another obvious form of diversion, as he focuses the attention of the bull on his cape, so allowing himself to avoid injury. In the world of propaganda and public mind manipulation, we are constantly being subjected to this. Accusations of anti-Semitism against New World Order investigators is a classic example of diversion. You concentrate attention on the issue of the messenger's alleged racism and divert attention from what he or she is saying about their research. We have come to the strategy of infiltrating moderate wings of political parties while covertly following an extreme game plan. This is a diversion which stops extremists from being identified while they themselves denounce their legitimate opposition as extremist. We heard from time to time of revelations about intelligence agencies, but how many are real revelations and how many are systematically leaked to divert people away from what's really going on? An example, publish a book by a spy who names certain people as foreign agents. Hype it up through your controlled media and get the government to vehemently oppose it, so adding to its credibility. Persuade people to accept that the names revealed by the air quote whistleblower are correct and those who were really involved are in the clear. If you want to introduce controversial legislation or a government is being forced to reveal unpleasant information about itself, then under the rules of diversion, this should be done on a day you know another major story is going to break. This lessens the space and prominence given to what you say because of the massive media coverage of the other big story. On the day the British Homeland Secretary, Michael Howard, announced the introduction of identity cards, the loyalist paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland announced a ceasefire in line with the one agreed by the Republican IRA. This reduced by a tremendous amount. The coverage and reaction media was Michael Howard's identity cards. I do not believe that this was a coincidence, especially since the paramilitaries and the British government are in regular contact through the secret society network and other channels, no matter what they may say publicly. Indeed, the secret communication between the IRA and their air quote enemy, the British government, has been publicly exposed. The attempts to blame 2 Libyans for the bomb on the Pan Am Flight 103, which killed 270 people at Lockerbie, Scotland in December 1988, is another case of diversion. None of the evidence points to Libya. That is a convenient scapegoat to move attention from what really happened and to undermine the Gaddafi regime. The evidence of independent studies and documents clearly points to other Middle East connections, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies. The Lockerbie crash site was swarming with American agents, as locals and journalists have pointed out. Police Surgeon David Fieldhouse said he issued death certificates after examining 59 bodies, but later found that the police records contained details of only 58. What happened to the missing body? No one seems to know. Could it have just been the body that would have shed some light on what happened and who did it? And if the authorities didn't know what was going to occur, why were VIPs warned not to take flight after their seats had been booked? Among them were Pik Botha, the South African minister, and others accompanying him, including the head of BOSS, or BOSS, the South African intelligence agency, which has close ties to the CIA and Mossad. They canceled the reservations on Flight 103 shortly before the departure after a tip-off from intelligence sources. Pik Botha told the British businessman Tiny Rowlands that these sources were the kind that could not be dismissed. Libya has been used as a diversion for years. Colonel Gaddafi was portrayed as the monster of monsters until it became more useful to give that title to George Bush's old friend Saddam Hussein. The bombing of Tripoli by U.S. planes flying over British bases in '86 was a part of this. Dozens of Libyan civilians, including children, were murdered by the Americans with British support in retaliation for air quote Libyan terrorism at a disco in West Berlin, for which, again, there was no evidence, as later conceded by the German investigators. I know nothing about Gaddafi for sure, but I have heard the suggestion that he is hated by the US. There's another view that this air quote hatred is a front for CIA terrorist training based in Libya, which it is said has honed the skills of the IRA, the Red Brigades, and other terrorist groups. It's hard to tell, but here I'm looking only at the strange connections surrounding the Lockerbie bomb. The man who wrote the paper for Ronald Reagan, which proposed a campaign to destroy the Gaddafi regime, which lies and disinformation was, by his own admission, the CIA operative Vincent Cannistraro. He worked for 3 years on the campaign with Oliver North, and this led to the bombing of Tripoli. Who was the man appointed to the head of the CIA investigation in Lockerbie, which decided that the two Libyans were responsible? It couldn't be. Yes, it could. Vincent Cannistraro. Part of the CIA campaign against Libya included the murder of CIA and the British policewoman Yvonne Fletcher in St. James Square, London, on April 17th, 1984. This murder was blamed on the staff at the Libyan People's Bureau. Some researchers believe that she was shot by a CIA marksman from 8th Street, James Square, close to the Bureau, say some researchers. This building has been occupied from only a few months before by a company with known CIA connections. Despite this information and the fact that no evidence points to an involvement by Libya in the Lockerbie bombing, the United Nations, the global elite, continue to impose sanctions on that country. And the British Prime Minister has refused to allow for a trial of the two Libyans to take place in a neutral country. Either the British government at the highest levels is breathtakingly dumb, or they know more about Lockerbie than they are prepared to reveal to the people who elected them. The United States and the elite use a create a monster technique all the time to divert attention from the fact that they are installing and pulling the strings of far more extreme regimes all around the world. There was no talk of monsters and terrorism in 1988 when the USS Vincennes fired a missile by accident to shoot down an Iranian passenger jet with 290 on board. The Vincennes was shot in the Persian Gulf to support, it was in the Persian Gulf to support Saddam Hussein, then America's friend and ally in the Iraqi war with Iran. The commander of the ship was severely punished, and he was awarded the Legion of Merit Act by George Bush for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service and for the calm and professional atmosphere under his command during the period that the jet was destroyed. The elite know the goal that they are aiming for and the stepping stones required to manipulate public opinion towards that end. But if they are going to persuade people to accept those stepping stones, each one must be presented in isolation. If once they are seen by the general public as links in a chain leading towards a global centralized tyranny, obviously the game is up. If you want barcoded human beings linked to a central computer, you must first get them to accept credit and identity cards. You can be even more subtle by announcing, first of all, that the identity cards will not be compulsory, as Michael Howard did at the Conservative Party conference of 1994. Shouts of dismay from the audience who want them to be compulsory make you look positively moderate in comparison, and initial opposition from the civil liberties groups is diluted because the government says, but they are not compulsory, people have the choice. Of course, the plan is to make them compulsory and then go on to barcoding, but the stepping stones diversionary approach demands that this be done in distinct stages so that people in general don't realize what is going on. These tactics are used at all levels of society. If you want to develop an area of unspoiled, isolated land, and you announce plans to build a housing estate or an industrial complex, it would attract enormous amounts of opposition. Instead, the first stage is to propose a road to allow people greater access to the area. Once this has been achieved, a few buildings begin to appear, then more and more until you've built in stages what you intended to build all along. This is one reason why the information in this book and others like it is so important. Once you know the ultimate aims, the stepping stones towards them become so easy to see.
Yeah, it's your dog eat dog world. It's your dog eat dog world. Me, I'm in the myrtle. I'm just trying to keep some calm nerves. Propaganda just like clockwork. Niggas panic just like clockwork. I'm just chillin' in the myrtle. With the crazies and their mobsters. It's all about they dollar. It's all about they dollar. This shit feel just like the Hunger Games. Put your family and your squad first. You more likely to get ride first. Especially if you ballin' like they dyers. Hope you loaded up that Moshberg. 50 cal make you straighten up your posture. You can't understand her cause we talk slurred. High off of pain pills and cough serve. You look softer than some soft serve. Been a real nigga since they Tyler. If I was you, I would be scared too. News anchors is the feds too. The sky's falling now. Guess it's time to put a parachute. Yeah, it's your dog eat dog world. It's your dog eat dog world. Me, I'm in the myrtle. Trying to keep some calm nerves. Propaganda just like clockwork. Nigga panic just like clockwork. I'm just chillin' in the myrtle. By the crazies and the mobsters. This might get a little awkward. This the section where they plot turn. Been told you about the cover up. I been told you about the watchers. They wanna turn us into monsters. They circumcise your cock first. Vaccinate you second. Desensitize your heart third. Have you ever watched Purge? Effects are subtle, but the outcome is a lie. Words. Psychopath, schizophrenia. Watch us kill each other unbothered. They treat us like a louse herd. We run the new age thinkers and philosophers. But every guru ain't 1,000. Watch out for imposters. It's a dog eat dog world. It's a dog eat dog world. Me, I'm in the myrtle. Trying to keep some calm nerves. Propaganda just like clockwork. Niggas panic just like clockwork. I'm just chillin' in the myrtle. By the crazies and them mobsters. Why am I talking proper like I went to Oxford? Haters ain't on my Doppler. She don't really want me, she just wanna be more popular. Why you talking to they wall, sir? Someone call this guy a doctor.